So for today's session, the expectation is that all of you have gone through some of the information listed on the portal, which can be found under Our Work, Information Technology, taking a look at the Gate 3 page, Learning page, where all of our resources are listed, specifically going into the financial box and taking a look at the costing. This is where you will find some information regarding the Master Format 2004. This is the cost accounts structure that we are using in Gate 3. So for today's session, when you filled out the registration, the expectation is really that you have gone through this and familiarize yourself with the Master Format 2004 structure, as well as you've gone through the EllisDon list of standard cost codes, which are, there's a link that you can review here. And we also have a new cost code presentation, okay? So that's the expectation for today. We are going to get started, so welcome everyone. Today we're going to go through a high-level overview of the Gate 3 financials, specifically taking a closer look at the costing module, the budget module, and the billing. Our agenda for today, we will first take a look at project creation in Gate 3. We'll then go into the costing module, budget module, and then billing, and then we'll have a quick Q&A. And I'll show you how you can access the training environment if you wish to sign in as project manager and go in and play around in the fictitious sandbox environment. So if you have attended my previous sessions, especially the introduction session, you'll notice you would have already gone through the project creation in Gate 3, but as a starting point for today's session, so that we're all on the same page, I'd like to review it. So a project gets created in Gate 3, typically by the estimating department, if it's a job that we are bidding on during pre-construction phase. The estimators will create that project profile. Alternatively, if it's a project that we are pursuing, the pursuit team will also have access to create a project profile, or alternatively, the cost accountant can also create a project in the project profile module. So once a project goes through the pre-construction phase and EllisDon is fortunate enough to receive the notice of contract award, at that time the project manager is going to complete the NOCA form, which is found on the portal in the best business practices section. They fill out this form as best as they can with the information that they have at that time. They fill it in and they submit that form to the costing department, to the cost accountant. The costing person will go into the Gate 3 project profile and trigger the FMS integration. Excuse me. At that point, costing will then email eSupport, who will grant internal and external contacts a project role and access, so that the PM of record, superintendent, and some internal staff can go in and start really reviewing and creating contacts in their project. So the project is really handed over to the construction team. During this process, eSupport sends out an email to a group of people, including the professional services team, at which time someone from our professional services team will contact the project manager of record and will set up a startup kickoff session where they will discuss the implementation of Gate 3 as well as training needs. So we're going to go in and introduce the costing module. The costing module in Gate 3 consists of cost accounts. So on day one, a project manager can expect to find a default of about 24 cost accounts that have been imported by the cost accountant. into your project. A cost accountant, so that we are all on the same page, tracks your internal costs and can be broken down by type, phase, and location. The initial setup is by a cost accountant who is going to import that default set, and they will also go into the configuration settings for the budget and set up the parameters and the original budget. So at this point, once the project has been handed over and turned over to the PM, it really is, you are basically going to start a discussion with the estimator and the costing person, and you're going to work together to mark up and work from the estimate that won the job in order to carve out the cost accounts. So the cost accounts are going to be imported into the project by the cost accountant. Okay, so costing is really, it's driven by the PM. However, all of the function is controlled by the costing department. There are some reports that you can track costs, such as the project cost accounts view, which gives you a cost to date. Any questions before we go into Gate 3 and take a look at this? Okay, I'm going to segue and actually go into Gate 3. As a review, you can access Gate 3 from our portal, clicking on Our Work, going into the Gate 3 link. This takes you directly into the Gate 3 application. Alternatively, you can also open up a window on your browser and type in build.gate3.com, and that takes you into the Gate 3 application, at which time you're going to log on with your EllisDon email address and your Windows password. So a project manager will not have access to the, in the financials, going into the costing. You'll have access to go into the costing, and you will have access to the different views. However, you will not have access to create new cost accounts or import cost accounts. Again, as mentioned previously, this function is controlled by your cost accountant. So these options will be grayed out. You'll have access to the different views, but you won't have access to create. Okay, so again, first day that on the job, when you are going into your project, what you can expect is a list of standard cost accounts that have been imported and linked to a budget line. So I'm going to go back into my presentation. Let's now talk about the budget module. So the budget module is really owner specific. So you should be having discussions very early on with your owner/client to determine how they would like to see their billing set up. And in Gate 3 we use the terminology of tiers, which really is a way that you can group your budget, and we have up to 2 tiers allowed. So I do have a note. If you are using tiers, make sure that Tier 1 does not exceed 3 digits, Tier 2 does not exceed 7 digits, and the line number does not exceed 7 digits, as this may cause unpredictable results on your PDF, the billing PDF. So please make a note of that. So once you've discussed with your owner/client how they would like to see their billing breakdown, if you are going to be using tiers or not, you are responsible for using the import template to break down your budget and then import it into Gate 3. And once you've imported your budget, then you're going to be linking a budget line to a cost account. So every budget line must be linked to an internal cost account, and multiple budget lines, or multiple cost accounts rather, are you can link them to one budget line. Gate 3 does, Gate 3 offers you the flexibility. Yes?
I have a question regarding what you just said. So we have in my case, we have a budget line where we have all the money for the staff. But I got an email a couple of days ago asking me if I want to create a new cost account for the assistant superintendent and another cost account for the quality manager we are bringing to our site. But I already have a cost account assigned to staff, so can I create another two cost codes linked to that same budget line?
You can link, yes you can. Absolutely.
So I can have 4 or 5, no matter what, cost codes assigned to the same budget line.
That's correct. However, you do have to speak to your cost accountant and make sure that they are okay with that. So Gate 3 gives you the flexibility to link multiple cost accounts to one budget line. However, we recommend that you discuss that with your cost accountant.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah, thank you.
You're very welcome. Any other questions? So the budget and the billing module are really synonymous. When you save a budget line, the moment that you save it, it will automatically create a billing line for you under the billing layout that was previously created by the cost accountant in the initial setup of your project. So a cost accountant goes in and imports a default of cost accounts, but in order for them to complete the portion, they have to actually create a budget line to link it. So they'll usually create 01 general accounts and then link it to that budget line. In order to save that budget line in Gate 3, it's necessary for them to create a billing component. So they will create a billing layout for you. In Gate 3 terminology, this is called a prime pay application layout. In the AS400 terminology, we call it a billing component. So the cost accountant goes in and creates basically that component for you. Once the project is turned over to you, you are required to go in and just review and verify that mandatory fields are set up correctly. So the retainage and other things. So I'm going to go into the budget. And give you an idea of how you can use the tiers, the groupings. As you can see in this view, we have used one tier. Again, a tier is really the way you want to group your budget lines. So I currently have 2 budget lines under my general conditions, and these 2 roll up to the first tier, to basically general conditions. They both roll up. The sum of these 2 rolls up to this amount. So tiers are a way of grouping your budget lines, the way you want to display your budget lines. Again, we have a maximum of 2 tiers. You can use 1 or 2 tiers. The first thing before you import your budget lines into Gate 3 is to click on Manage Tiers and carve out your tiers. So you have to decide whether you're going to be using 1 or 2. If you are going to be using 2 tiers, you have to go into the Administration module, clicking on Settings, So always selecting your project level, going into the budget module, and ensuring that the number of tiers is set correctly. So in this project, they're only using one tier. So number one is the default. If I wanted to use 2 tiers, you'd have to click on Edit and change that to 2 tiers. And then click Save and go back into the budget view. Click on Manage Tiers and you'd be able to carve out 2 tiers. So this is the first thing that has to happen in the budget module, deciding how many tiers you're going to use and then carving them out. Once you've carved them out and populated them, then what you're going to do is click on New. You have the ability of creating one by one manually, one budget line at a time. However, that's quite cumbersome. This is more useful when it's an as-needed budget line, one-off. I would recommend using the import budget line because this will you're making use of an Excel CSV file that you can click on. Don't know if you saw that. By clicking on here, you can download the sample It opens up the CSV for you. And depending on how many tiers you're going to be using and what you've previously defined in the budget module, it's at that point that you can start breaking down your budget lines. Okay? So again, before you import this CSV, you actually have to have the breakdown of the tiers in Gate 3. The system will validate against what you have in here. So as you can see, I have 1, 4, 6, and 10. We do recommend that you create a tier for changes. This is mandatory for using, this is a prerequisite rather, for using the changes module. So please ensure that you create a change tier. Typically this tier will be down at the very bottom, the last tier. We do also recommend that you use increments of 5 or 10 so that in the future, if you ever have to come back and create another tier during your project, that you can always insert it in between if need be. So a good business rule is that you leave some increments, maybe 5 or 10. That way you can always insert a tier if required. When you are carving out your lines, we also recommend that you use increments of 5 or 10 in the event that you have to create a new, completely brand new budget line in the future. You have the ability of doing that, inserting it, just creating it in the system, but inserting a new line. So increments of 10 or 5 is what we recommend. Just
finally.
Keep that in mind. And hi there.
It's the TOR1 70223.
Sorry, I'm just wondering if you guys can mute your phones. We're picking up some background noise. And I am recording this session. Thank you. So you're going to be breaking out your budget lines as well as putting in the description and then the draft budget amount and original budget. Once this has been set up or you've completed it, it's at that point that you can go into Gate 3, click on New, Import Budget Lines, click on Specify Target File, select your CSV, and make sure that the system has uploaded it to this section, Current Source, and then try and import. So I know that mine's going to have some errors. I just want to demonstrate what an error will look like. So the system does validate against what you have predefined as a tier. So there was a problem with my import spreadsheet and no budget lines were imported. And that's probably because my spreadsheet, the tier number 2 and 3 do not exist. So if we go back and I take a look at the view, budget view, under manage tiers, I don't have 2 and 3. So again, the system is validating against the tier that you have pre-populated prior to the import. So it does take a look at that. When you are carving out your budget lines, I think I previously mentioned it, but make sure that you do leave some increments, so maybe use increments of 5 or 10 so that you can always, in the future, if you need to create a brand new budget line, you can do so and stick it in between the numbers. Any questions regarding the budget, the import process, or managing the tiers?
Yeah, I have a question, Maria. This is better again. We have a general account budget right now, and we are finishing currently the overall project budget. So if I want to start, well, I don't have yet the confirmation from the client, but I'm going to start hiring subcontractors. Do I need to have a budget line for each subcontract that I'm going to submit now?
For each subcontract?
Yeah, I'm going to send 3 contracts now to 3 different subcontractors. Do I need the budget lines in the budget in order to do so?
Yes, so thank you for that question. That's a great question. So in order to use any of the financial modules in Gate 3, let's quickly review that. In order to use the changes, purchase order invoices, contract module, as well as your time card module, you are required to have a cost account and a budget line, because these modules, basically you have to have both the cost account and a budget line linked in order for it to track the costs. You cannot create a contract without a budget line. The system will validate and it won't let you save or submit. It will basically give you an error. So in any of those modules that I just showed, you are required to have a cost account linked to a budget line and a budget line saved.
That makes sense. And just last question, I'm sorry if it's very specific to my project. Now in our project, we are going to receive a change order for each package that we submit to the subcontractors, so it's a construction management type of deal. So can I create a budget line each time I get a change order from the client? Like, I can go step by step creating the budget lines for the contract.
So basically with those, if I understand correctly, with those change packages, you're going to be increasing or receiving the money from the owner?
Yeah.
Okay, so what you can do is manage that by creating an internal change at the time.
Sorry, I didn't get that one.
Managing an internal change
Okay.
between ourselves and the subcontractor.
Between ourselves and the subcontractor is going to be a contract.
That's right, but you have to create an internal change to increase the subcontractor's contract.
Okay. But I don't have a contract with them yet.
Yeah, I think what we can do is have a conversation after the session, because it's very specific to your job.
Yeah, exactly.
But you would manage that by creating an internal contract, or sorry, change to increase the amount.
Okay.
Okay? Yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk about it later.
Sure. Any other questions? Crystal, Melissa, Priscilla, Wendy, you guys okay? Okay.
Yeah, sorry, just had to take it off mute. I'm good.
Okay. Just taking a quick look at my notes, making sure that I have covered all of the key messages. Okay, so I do want to mention, let me just, once the PM has imported all of the budget lines, we do have a report that you can run. From the budget view, you can click on Create Report. Actually, sorry, I apologize. Once you import them, the second thing that you're going to have to do, let me just take a quick look. I have a draft, so I can actually demonstrate this from the draft. So all of your budget lines, once you've imported them into Gate 3, are going to appear as drafts. And it's at that time that you're going to open the budget line, click on Edit, and come into the cost account assignment and link it to the cost account. And again, you can have, Gate 3 allows you the flexibility to assign multiple cost accounts to one budget line. However, we do recommend that you have that discussion with the cost accountant. So you do need to have approval by the cost accountant. Let them know what you're intending on doing. Let me just take a look here if I have a landscape cost account. I'll just put it in this one. So you would be able to select and click on Assign, or click on this button over here and link the two. So once I click Save, this draft budget line is going to automatically update and the status will be Save. And what happens in the background, I'll demonstrate this, it will automatically generate a billing line for me in the billing layout. So I'm going to click on Save. The system will ask me, what billing component do you want to link it to? Because I have two, I have a miscellaneous billing and I have my monthly billing. That's why the system is just letting me know which billing do you want to link that budget line to. So at this point I will select the first one and then click on Apply. And what has happened in the background is that the system has automatically created, let me go into the billing, the system has automatically created a billing line for me. So once again, to recap, the prime, now talking a little bit about billing before we go in Gate 3, some terminology that I want to introduce to you. Prime contract pay application layout is what we use as billing component in AS400 terminology. So in Gate 3, it is called Prime Contract Pay Application Layout. And this is synonymous with billing component. It's a document that determines the breakdown of your billing for your owner/client. And you can have multiple layouts. As you saw, I had a monthly billing and I had a miscellaneous. So multiple layouts are possible in one project. Every budget line must be previously linked to a cost account, and then you save it and it automatically creates the billing line for me. Okay, so let's go into Gate 3, and I now want to go into Start, under Financials, in the Payment Application / Billing module. This is where you will find the default view is Prime Contract Pay Application Layout. So again, as a reminder, the cost accountant, in order for a cost accountant to save the general one accounts or general conditions budget line, they are required to create the billing component. So they will come in and create this component for you. I'm going to go into the monthly billing, clicking on that link. They have to create this this billing component. So they come in and basically fill out some of the mandatory fields for you, and then they go back into the budget and save. So I save the landscape billing budget line. If I go into my pay application layout lines and I look for, I think it was plant allowance. Does anyone remember? Was it plant allowance, CA1 plant allowance? Can't remember what it was. Plant allowance, that one is, wait. It's 3200, okay. Landscaping. So the budget line, once I save that budget line, it automatically creates the billing line for me. And there it is. Okay, so it's automatically created once you click on Save. Again, if you have more than one Prime Pay application layout, then you have to select which billing layout you would like to link it to. Any questions? So looking at this diagram, this visual, again, as a recap, the cost accountant is really responsible for uploading all of the cost accounts. And again, the PM is going to have the discussion with both the estimator as well as the cost accountant on the breakdown based off of the estimate that won the job. So you're going to be breaking out your cost accounts. The cost accountant will import all of the cost accounts and save them. And then once they are saved, the next prerequisite is really for the project manager to start breaking down the budget, working off of that import CSV and breaking down your budget lines, figuring out how you want to group them if you're going to be using one or two tiers, and then importing your budget line, linking the budget line. You can link it to one or you can link it to two. This is an example where we have linked multiple cost accounts to one line. Typically, this is more what we recommend. It is best business practice. You can have multiple under the general accounts. But if you wanted to start linking multiple to other accounts, like for example a subcontract, for let's just, as an example, your concrete. your concrete is going to be subcontracted, and at that point you want to select multiple cost accounts, we do definitely recommend that you have that discussion with your cost accountant. I know that in some areas, some cost accountants will not allow you to have multiple cost accounts for concrete, as an example, because it's going to be a subcontract. Okay?
Okay.
So yeah, you really do have to have that discussion with your area cost accountant. Okay. Any other questions? In this diagram, you will also notice how the moment that you've saved the budget line, it will ask you what billing component, again in Gate 3 it's called a prime contract pay application, which prime contract pay application layout you want to link that budget line to, the main billing or your miscellaneous. Once you've selected that and click on save, at that point it automatically creates that billing line for you. And at that point you are able to start using the different modules in the system. So you would be able to use the time cards, purchase orders and invoices. So one of the most common things that occur on a project is that the PM will be very careful and break out their budget, import it. They'll break down the tiers and import their budget, but they forget to link the cost account to the budget line. So we get calls from maybe the superintendent who's trying to create the time card for their hourly staff, and when they go in and create it, it tells them that, oh, there's no budget line for that cost account. So please ensure that when you import your budget lines, you immediately start linking them back to the cost accounts and then clicking on save, because that's one of the most common things that occurs. And I'm just going to show you, I'll try and do an example of it. Okay, let me just go into another project. Okay, so I have some draft time cards, and if I wanted to now start recording this person's hours, I'll just this one's, I'm missing some buttons here, so sorry, give me a second, let me cancel. Is this one already active? No, they're draft. Okay, so I'm just going to select this. These have already been, I'm just going to clear this. They've already been assigned to a cost account and a budget line. But someone may get stuck when they come in and start creating the time card, they have a superintendent has to associate and link this time card to a cost account. So I'm just going to select, let me actually try and select safety. Let's see. And then they have to select a budget line. So what happens most times is very common that the budget line will be missing. So they'll click on that button and they'll get this pop-up and they will not see a budget line appear. That indicates that the budget line has not been linked to the cost account. So at this point they are prevented from moving any forward because there's no budget line. It would be blank here. It would just be grayed out. They have to click on cancel and they would probably have to, they would inform the assistant PM or PM that the budget line they are trying to use has not been linked to the cost account. So that does happen quite a bit. It can also happen in the purchase order / invoice module where the budget line has not been previously linked to the cost account. So we do recommend that when you are going through and importing your budget lines, make sure that you always link them before you save. And then once you save them, going into the budget module under financials, we do have a report within the budget module, within budget view, clicking on more actions, create report. This report is going to give you a breakdown of your budget and the cost accounts that have been associated to it. So this is a really good auditing report that you can run after you've imported and assigned and linked back to your cost accounts, because this will tell you if there's any gaps. So by quickly going through, you'll notice that most of the budget lines have been linked. I don't have any that are missing. If there were some missing, I know that I have some in the other project. So under financials, under budget, let's create this report. We have, let me see. Okay, it looks like most of them are linked as well. If there was some that were missing the linkage, it would come up in this section right here, null, and it would show you as null. So that indicates visually, it's an indicator to the PM that the linkage has not been made, has not been completed. So if you see null, then that indicates that you have to still link that budget line to a specific cost account. And vice versa, we also have this report available in the under financials costing module. In the project cost account view, we also have create report. And this is basically the exact same, except now it's showing, the first line that's shown is the cost account, and the cost account linked to the budget line. So it is a good idea that you print out one of the reports before using the system, before going through and starting using all the financial modules, because this will let you know what you're missing. Okay, so that again is project cost account view. This original budget within this view is set up by the cost accountant right before they start importing the default cost accounts. So they go into the settings and set this up. So the system will validate, and it will basically validate against this amount that has been set up. the original budget in the settings. It looks to that. Okay, this is the view where we have all of your cost accounts. One thing I didn't mention earlier, and I apologize, is in Gate 3 we now have 5 different cost account types. So in Edge Builder we had material and labor. Once those cost codes were imported into your Edge Builder database, you could designate a material cost account as a subcontracted type. So in Gate 3 we have, you basically have to know early on which cost account is going to be subcontracted in the breakdown of your cost accounts. So prior to giving the cost accountant the export or the import CSV, if they have you break it down, I know in some areas the cost accountant is breaking it down themselves. They physically go in and break down the cost accounts and then import the CSV. In other areas, it may be that the cost accountant will send you the CSV and you have to break out your cost accounts. So it is important very early on that you understand and that you know, okay, it's going to be a subcontracted type of cost account. Make sure that you define that in the CSV. So we have 5 types. Let me quickly go through them. We have material, labor, subcontracted, equipment, and other. 5 different cost account types in Gate 3. I don't know if I have 61 here. Let me just expand my view and we'll scroll through them. It looks like this project only has labor. Oh, there's an example of other. So we have other. I don't know if I have an example of equipment. So 5 different cost account types are allowed in Gate 3. Material, labor, subcontracted, equipment, and other. Just quickly reviewing my notes, making sure that I cover everything. In the cost account summary view, let me open up one of these. So earlier I mentioned at the very beginning that a cost account can be broken out even further by phase and location. Okay, so these are the 2 fields that you can use to differentiate. If you, so what we could have here, the possibility of having 2 material cost accounts, but using the phase and location, phase or location field to differentiate the 2. Or labor, like if I need, so if you were working on a job that had several phases, or some of the civil jobs are using the phase and location to differentiate as well. So you do have that ability to do that. Okay, so going back into the budget module, once you've imported your budget, again you import your budget clicking on the new import budget lines. That's how you're going to get them all in using the CSV. So again, very important, once you've imported it, they're going to come in as draft at which time you do have the ability of deleting. So you can delete a draft, but you cannot delete one that has been saved. Okay, once you save it, we do have a massive delete, as you can see up here. So if you've come in and imported and something just doesn't look good, or you're not really happy with maybe your tier, the way that, let me just back out and clear that. If you're not happy with something, you do have the ability of clicking this checkbox and massively deleting with this delete draft budget lines, okay? I think I'm getting a text from my colleague. Oh wait, no, not yet. We still have half an hour. That's fine. Sorry. Okay, so you could use the draft, or the delete draft budget lines to delete multiple budget lines from the view, alternatively one by one. And we also have the ability, if you wanted to, select all draft and click on save. However, you have to remember that once you've saved it, then you're going to have to go into each and every one individually and link it to the cost accounts. Okay? So you do have the ability of massively saving. However, you still have to go back in to each budget line, click on edit because it's already been saved and it becomes current. So the two statuses are draft, and then when you save it becomes current. Then you click on edit, and on your left hand side click on cost account assignment and start assigning the cost account, and then clicking on save. Again, once you click on save, that's when it will automatically, it'll ask you if you have more than one billing layout, it will ask you which billing layout you want to use, and then it will also create that line for you under the billing module and save this for you. Well, basically update it because it was current, it was already saved. Okay, so you could come in the future and assign more cost accounts if you had to. Again, I'm not discouraging that, but you do have to speak to your cost accountant before you do that, before you start linking multiple cost accounts to a budget line. Always have that discussion with your cost accountant as a general rule. But really, once you have your budget lines saved and you have linked them to your cost accounts, because in the background it's generating these budget lines under the billing layout, it's at that point that you are ready to start using the time cards module, purchase orders, invoices, contracts, and changes. Are there any questions? You guys are quiet today.
Yeah, no questions from my side.
Okay, thank you. Any of the ladies? In the costing module, we do have another report. Not sure if it's if I have it here, but give me one. Maybe let's go through this default cost account summary view. So in the costing module, let's walk through it because this is quite a big view. We have the breakdown by cost code number, then description, lets you know if it's in draft. If it's in draft, it will say yes. And that, again, only the cost accountant can save it. They are responsible for saving them. But let's go through this. So this first is basically a total. And then if you start walking through, we have your original budget, current, the pending, committed. This committed is going to get, is reflected on all of the transactions occurring in the different modules. Okay, so time cards or contracts, as well as changes, pending changes. And then we have, up at the very top, you'll notice the labor cost account, summary information. So always looking up at the very top shows you what cost account type this corresponding information is listed. So labor, I believe the second one is material cost account. Subcontracted in the green. So I have a committed cost. This would be a contract that's been issued for $10,000. So if I go into the my contract requisitions, it's probably this one. Okay, and then the pink is equipment. And then other. So we recently had a reshuffle. It used to be that the total was at the very end of the view. They've made it a little easier, and now your total, so for your total cost to date, it can now be found under, oh, let me just refresh this. There, under the first series of columns, this is now your total cost to date. So they've reshuffled some of these columns to improve the usability. And then under, let's go into the project cost accounts again. So this one again is going to list every single cost account type for you. And there's 5: subcontracted, material, labor, equipment, and other. And this is an example of these cost accounts. They're subcontracted under 01-2020, but we've used the account phase field to differentiate them. So this is a great example of what I was talking about earlier. They're subcontracted type, but in order to make them unique, we have used the account phase field. So account phase as well as cost account location can be used to differentiate. That's a great example of what I was referring to earlier. I think these are all just under general accounts though. Okay. And then in the budget view, the budget view is the default view, the landing page. Once you navigate to the budget module, it basically gives you this view. And again, as a recap, you have to first decide how you want to break down the your budget and the tiers. So the first thing that you have to do in this module is really decide how many tiers are you going to use. Are you going to use 1 or 2? If you are using 2, you have to go into your settings and make sure that allow 2 tiers is turned on. Then come into this view again and start carving them out. And again, the tier is really the way you want to group and summarize your budget lines. We used to have a fictitious, let me just try and find it. We've recently wiped out some information in some of these in our training sandbox environment. Yeah, we no longer have it. We used to have a fictitious project that actually had 2 tiers. Let me just go into this one. I'm not sure if it contains 2 tiers, but we'll check. No, this is a 1-tier breakdown. Okay. So this view is also quite long, so let's quickly walk through some of the columns here. We have the original budget, any pending transfers, changes, owner changes, and internal changes. Let me scroll over. Current budget, over and under, so this now has some costing information. This is quite long. And billing. Did I miss any? I don't think I did. Okay. Any questions for me regarding, again, this is really meant as an introduction. I don't want to overwhelm you guys. It's more introducing the Gate 3 financials, the costing module, the budget, and how the 3 are interconnected. That's really the expectation of today's session, how the 3 of them are linked in the background, and how once you have this linkage, it's at that point that you can start using the different modules. So typically for the billing, you will be sitting down with your professional services person, and they will be able to help you get out that first billing to your owner and client. Bizad, do you have any questions?
No, good for now.
Okay.
My questions usually come when I'm doing things, like following your training makes everything sense, but then you get to forget little details.
Right, okay, thank
But
you.
so far so good for now.
Okay. Okay, so that's everything I have to show you today. I would recommend going into our training sandbox environment. You can click on our work, going into information technology, specifically into the Gate 3 link, and really trying to play around in the training sandbox. This gives you a chance to explore, familiarize yourselves with the user interface, and you can go in to any of these projects and start creating some budget lines. Again, you will be signing in as project manager. So as project manager, you will see what a PM's role's access is. So this gives you a good, a realistic view of what a PM has access to. You won't be able to create any cost accounts, but you will be able to create budget lines and then see how it translates into the billing. Okay? If you guys do have any other questions or concerns, please email me, or you can give me a call.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So